Well, King Salman is more of a conservative than King Abdullah, but in general, the rule stands. So the rule stands that women's rights in general is not on top of the agenda when you have to deal with the religious authorities. So the government looks at itself, or the leadership in the government looks at itself as representative of the Islamic faith or Islamic countries, housing the two holy mosques. So stability based on the affiliation with the religious establishment is key. And if they have to, ignore certain women's rights because that would, buy in more support from the religious establishment, that is something that they welcome. Of course, that is not necessarily, I would say, true across the board, because we have seen that in small-scale changes, the government really, moved ahead with empowering women, like inclusion of women in the advisory council. So they picked 30 women and they put them there, or inclusion of certain women of women in the municipal elections, like few seats, 2,000 seats basically across the kingdom. Less than 1% were occupied by women. So on a controlled, smaller scale changes in women's rights, the government is willing to go that route, but they're not going to enact gender equal personal status law, for instance. Even though that will reduce the workload in the courts to less than 80%, like what happened in Morocco, for instance. It would reduce the complaints from abuse of privilege and power by the men inside the family. It would allow more women to have a say in their own lives. But that is a route that the government is not willing to take, basically because that will put them in a constant confrontation with the religious establishment. So as long as the scale of change is controlled, small, and doesn't really incite a lot the religious establishment, the government sees more value in aligning with the religious establishment than aligning with women's rights.